Hey, it's Justin with Flat Creek Firearms. We're out here again. This is how these tests start every time. It's actually a customer's gun. That's the reason there's a tag on it. And he asked the question. He's actually standing right behind y'all too. So we're going to do this in front of him as well. So that way he knows actually what he's getting when he leaves my shop. So the question was, what is the best round in my shop currently to actually take a deer with? I said, I don't know. I've never actually shot a deer with any of these. So we can find out. So another gel test. I'm going to be that person that does gel tests. I really don't like it that much because it takes forever. Barnes 223 55 grain TSX FB. We're going to try those. Federal 223 64 grain jacketed soft points. And then the Winchester, this is 64 grain, and this is the Deer Season XP. We're actually going to try some 5.56 too. So the difference between your 223 and 5.56, 5.56 runs at 62,000 PSI chamber pressure. Your 55 grain usually runs about 58,000 PSI. The chamber pressures are actually what's different between the bullets. So that's the reason you can run a 223 and a 5.56 barrel, because the chamber pressure inside the barrel, what it's rated for, is 62,000. So we're going to get into this test. I already have some 55. These are the 5.56 77 grain. I already have them loaded up. So that's the one we're going to start with first. That's actually the AAC 77 grain OTMs. These are the 2,700 feet per second, guys, not the 25. I don't even run the 25s. We're going to run the black, Hornady Black 5.56 75 grain Interlock. I almost think that one's going to do really good. And then we're going to try the 5.56 75 grain boat tail hollow point. So those are the 6 rounds that I had in the shop real quick. So we're going to try them out, shoot them in this gel, and see what it does. All right, so we're down here at 100 yards, and we're starting off with the AAC 5.56 77 grain OTM. These are the 2,700 feet per second. We have the chrono set up, and we're going to give you a little 3-shot average on the steel. We're not setting a long shot up, but we'll let you see the actual group. And this gun's actually sighted in for 55 grain, but I'm just going to shoot a group on there to see where we're hitting and move over and hit the gel with it. Dead center. That was 2673 out of a 16-inch barrel. And I forgot to go over the gun, but this is a PSA 15, just pretty much PSA upper and lower 16-inch barrel. We are running the AB A10. That one was 2681. And that was 2704. The box velocity is saying 27. So our average between those 3 shots was 2687. All right, now we're about to take the shot in the ballistics gel, and hopefully old Bob, between the 2 blocks of gel and Bob with the 3A vest on, can stop this round. And that one was 2663. So that was actually the slowest one out of the 4 that we shot, the one that was in the jail. So just keep that in mind too. So this is amazing. Like I was not expecting this. So this is the AAC 5.56 77 grain OTM. And you could not ask for a better permanent wound cavity than what you're looking at right there. It literally, the bullet did blow up, but it blew up, which we kind of figured at that velocity it would, but it did exactly what it was supposed to do before it blew up. And not only that, right here, you're dealing with 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's stuck right there in the edge of this block. 4 different bleeding wound channels at the back of all this damage. This is an absolute devastating permanent wound cavity. I can't wait to actually see it myself on the slow-mo. But just to give y'all the data real quick, exactly where I was aiming, we'll go over the group too. But over the top of the block, it opens up right here at 3 inches is where it starts to flower open, where that hollow point starts to open up. And then it just, there's a spiral, there's a half a spiral in here, and literally it dumped every bit of that energy in. So from 3 inches in 6 inches. You know what that does? Puts you right in the cavity of an animal and dumps all the energy in it. That is exactly what you want to see from a bullet. Now, a lot of people will say, well, it blew up, the bullet blew up, but I don't care if they blow up or not. Like, everybody gets into this weight retention and all that. If it penetrates and it goes into my target animal that I'm hunting, I don't care if it blows up or not. If the animal's laying there when I go pick it up, the bullet did its job. But now, an old guy told me one time when I was taking my gunsmithing classes and stuff, he said, you want a bullet to go all the way through the animal and be stuck in the opposite side in the hide. That means that it dumped all the energy in the animal and you didn't have no wasted energy come out the side. But then you hear all these old hunters say, well, I want it to come out the other side because I have a good blood trail on both sides of the animal. It's bleeding out of both sides. There ain't no blood trail to follow whenever they're laying there dead. That's dead. That's what you call that. We're stamping that dead. So 3 inches of penetration opened up, 6 inches of permanent devastation, 4 different wound channels breaking off where the bullet broke off. The furthest piece of jacket went to 17 inches, which is almost out of the block. We didn't even have to use the catch block. And then you can see the big chunk of lead is right here. It's sitting at 10 inches. Majority of the fragments are sitting at 10 and a half inches right here. There's another piece at 13, and then the final one rests in around about 17 inches of penetration. So you can, and then on top of that, let's go over here. People say whatever they want to about AAC. I told PSA when I talked to them, I said, whatever y'all do not try to pump out more quantity. Keep your quality, because that's the reason people are buying this ammo. It's cheap ammo, but it's like hand loads. Look at the group. This is what a mil-spec trigger that absolutely sucks in that gun. And I'm not taking my time to shoot this group, but that group is literally from bullet to bullet, 1/2 an inch, 3/4 of an inch. And if I put a different trigger in that gun, took my time, that'd be a 1/2 inch gun at 100 yards, 16 inch barrel. So very impressed with the AAC 77 grain. All right, now we're down here and we're going to shoot the Hornady Black 5.56, and this is the 75 grain interlock bullet. So got the old chronograph set up. We're going to take a 3-shot group, same target. That one was 25-24. $24.98. And that was 25-20. So for an average of 25-14, the min was 24.98, the max was 25-24. All right, now we're gonna take the shot in the gel. All right, so now we're down here gonna take the 4th shot into the gel. And that one was 25-20. All right, so we're down here looking at the Hornady Black, and this is actually really impressive too. So this one started to open up a little bit sooner. I'm gonna say 1 3/4 inches. So 1 3/4 inches. And then the permanent cavity, I'm gonna go to right here. So 8.5 inches before it starts tapering back down and just loses all of its energy and just kind of plummets over here. And it did take a little bit of a curve, so this isn't more of a straight shot, but it roughly stopped at 20, go to the very tip of it, 20 3/8. But 1 3/4 inches, yeah, so here to here. So 8 inches of permanent wound cavity in this block. And it looks good. It spiraled through there, opened up, but not as much as the 77 grain open tip. The bullet is a little bit slower, but one thing I want to note, and I will pull these out and I'll show it to you, but one thing I do want to note, go ahead and note, is the jacket did not separate from the copper. Like the jacket and the copper, the jacket and the lead stayed bonded together. It didn't break apart. That's one of my concerns when I'm selling ammunition to guys with shooting smaller calibers is, do you get bullet separation? So I know when we shot the 350 Legend at 310 yards, we had bullet separation with those Winchesters. So I'm interested to see if these Winchesters do the same thing. But that's actually a really nice bullet, and it penetrated. Like, you don't need that much penetration, but it'll definitely do it. As far as the group, it definitely opened up from the 77 grain. From center to center, it's exactly a 1-inch group. 2 up top and then 1 little flyer down below. So if that would have been stuck up there, that would have been a really good group. But I mean, they're doing well. So we haven't had a bad one, what I would consider to be a bad one yet. All right, so now we're going to try out this is the Hornady 556 75 grain boat tail hollow point. So same grain as the black, it's just that's an interlock, and this is a boat tail hollow point. So we'll shoot a group with it. That was 27.58. So they're actually moving a little faster. $27.84. $27.58, and they're all in the same hole, every one of them. So, which this is the Superformance match, so I would expect it to be a little bit faster, and it's a match too. So our deviation on it was our average over the 3 shots was 27.66, so they are a little bit faster than the 77 grain AAC. Our slowest one was 27.57, and our fastest round was 27.84 for an average of 27.66. So, all right, so now we're about to take the 100-yard shot into the ballistics gel. And that one was 27.68. All right, so we just finished up the Superformance, and it's kind of what we expected after seeing the 77 grain. So we actually had a more violent explosion inside the block, and the bullet pretty much ripped itself apart. It threw jackets. So let's just start from the beginning. So started to open up. It was weird. Started to open up later in the block. So this one didn't really start opening up until 3.5 inches. We have a permanent wound cavity of 5.5, but in reality, it's 1.5 inches wide. So it plumed out more. It was a lot more violent in that area, but bullet completely separated, shard here at 6 and 7 inches. That's jacket. It almost looks like the tip of the bullet. That is the tip. The tip broke off. The tip is sitting right there. We have jacket separation here, lead, so 10 inches lead, jacket at 11. There's a piece of lead sitting under that piece of jacket at 11. There's a piece of lead that went 2.5 inches over here to the left from the direct path of the bullet. It's sitting at 11.5, and the rest of the back of the jacket, because I can see the boat, the actual boat tail of it. It's sitting at 11.5, an inch away from that. So it shifted, it went in and it took a curve, took a 3-inch curve to the left and broke apart. So it pretty much did this. Looks like it almost started tumbling, bend like this. So yeah, that's kind of what I was expecting. After seeing this is exactly what I would expect from a boat tail hollow point. And it's just moving a lot faster. What I didn't expect is why it didn't start to open up until 3.5, where the 77 grain, a little bit slower, started to open up at 3. I don't know. That really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But let's go over here and look at the accuracy real quick. That's 3 shots. So I would say 1, 2, 3. That's 1/2 inch. That's 1/2 inch out of a stock Palmetto State Armory upper and lower 16-inch barrel with the AB suppressor on it. 1/2-inch gun out of the box. All right, so now we're down here and we're switching over. So those last three we shot were the 5.56. Now we've moved over to the 223 grain, 223 Remington. The rest of the three will be 223 Remington. These are the Winchester XPs, Deer Season XPs. And these are the ones we see that separate. The jacket separates a good bit on, but this is a 64 grain, and we're gonna shoot a 3-shot group and give you the average velocity. Center punch the dot, 27.98. Geez, I wasn't expecting that. Oh, well, we did switch. We were shooting 77 grain, it's 64. That's the accuracy I expect out of Winchester. That was 27.82. And that one actually didn't even pick up, so. All right, now we're gonna take the shot in the gel block. All right, so hopefully this third shot, the 4-shot picks up, because the 3rd shot didn't pick up. So here we go. This is gonna be 100 yards in gel block with a Winchester. And that was the fastest one out of those 4. Well, I don't know about the 3rd one, but that was 28.02 out of the 64 grain. So we're down here with the Winchester. These are 64 grain, about what I expected. Not a bad cavity though. It's really not. I ain't gonna downplay it. Started to open up at roughly 1.5 inches. So 1.5 inches. The permanent cavity is 7 inches. The bullet blew up at 4.5 inches, and it was 2,800 feet per second on the chronograph. This is all lead shards, and this is pretty much where it kind of splintered off. Most of it broke off up top, and then the rest of the bullet dove down below, and then it ended up at, make sure I'm not pushing on the block, at exactly 15 inches. And a good piece of lead did stay attached to the actual jacket down on the bottom. There's another piece that broke off there. And as far as my pieces go, you have kind of a starburst that happened at around about 6 inches, which is right here. At 8 inches, you have a jacket. And at 9.5, you have a jacket. And then at 15, it buried up. As far as the width of the actual, looking at about 1.5 inches at its widest point. But it was at its widest point 4 inches in and then tapered back down to nothing. So, and this is pretty much the accuracy we see out of Winchester now, which I hate this. As a kid, this is all I shot. But I caught it a 3-inch group down there. It's actually sitting at 1.75 inches, so that ain't bad. So yeah, I probably wouldn't shoot those. And I know a lot of guys do, but that, as far as right now, that was the worst one. All right, so now we're moving over to the Federal. Again, this is the 223 Remington. We're moving over to the Federal. This is the Power Shocks. And this is the jacketed soft point 64 grain. Another big popular cartridge for guys that are shooting ARs. So we're gonna give you a group and some velocity. That was 27.96. 27.18. 27.18. Dang. So our min on that one was 27.18 and our max was 27.96. All right, we're about to take the shot at 100 yards in the gel. Oh. That one went a little bit low, but that one was 2730. It went a little bit low. I seen a little bit of board break on it. All right, so now we're down here. This was the Federal 64 grain blue box jacketed the Power Shocks. So this one, for one, I'd like to show. Now, don't get me wrong. This is where we shot. There was a weak point in the board already, but this is where we shot it with the 300 blackout. But kind of look at that spiral going on in there, like. That's kind of cool. But the overpressure from that, this reason we run the slow-mo on this gel is because we can see that temporary wound cavity, that overpressure. We need to see that. But as far as the permanent wound cavity, starts opening up at 1.25 inches. Then let me see, 1.25 inches. The permanent cavity, if I count, I'm gonna go main cavity. So 6.5. But really it spiraled and was bigger, like the track was bigger than the bullet itself, all the way out to 11 inches. So as far as like the longest permanent cavity, this one was actually it. So if you needed 11 inches of actual pretty good cavity through there, the Federal did it. And the jacket kind of stayed together. It did break off one piece at 11.5 a piece of jacket, but the bullet kind of retained and went into the other block for a total of 16.25 inches of penetration. I'm sorry, I'm reading it upside down. 19.25 inches of penetration. Read the tape the right way. That's not bad for a 223 out of a 16-inch AR. I mean, that's pretty impressive. That, believe it or not, the Federal looked like they grouped. This is the biggest group right now. So 2.25. The other ones I thought were about 2 inches. So yeah, and that's what happened too. Is I was actually back over here. I was aiming dead center. So even with this bullet, and it actually shot low. So keep that in mind. But it's not a bad track, and it's got I think this one's got the most penetration. So last one's coming up. All right, this is the last one we had in the lineup. 223 Remington 55 grain. TSX FB. This is the Barnes Vortex. I just call them Vortex, but VORTX. These are actually 55 grain. Everything else was a heavier grain, so we're interested to see how this is. This is a solid copper bullet, though, so we expect it to have the best weight retention, probably the best best penetration. So I don't know. We'll find out. You can tell that, look, 2902. It's a damn rocket ship. $28.86. $28.57. So our min was 28.57, our max was 29.02, and our average was 28.82. All right, we're about to take the shot in the gel with the Vortex, the Barnes Vortex. This is the 55 grain, solid copper. And that one was 28.76, so that was actually one of the slower ones. All right, so now we're down here with the Barnes. This is the Vortex. So first of all, I figured it would penetrate the most, and it absolutely did. 21.5 inches of penetration, and I can about tell you that bullet completely stayed together. I guarantee you the weight retention is 95% on that bullet because I don't see any shards. It's lacking a little bit in the permanent wound cavity, but it's so fast. I'd like to see what the overpressure looks like. But it started opening up at 1 inch. So the permanent wound cavity. So again, it's just like the other one. The biggest part of the cavity is 6 inches. That's your most damage. Where it pretty much tapers off and the spiral kind of stops is roughly 3 inches. So it goes to about 9 inches. If I was going to say total cavity, then it just kind of peters out and it does penetrate, but it's not doing much. And it actually kind of went forward about 1/2 inch and then bounced back. So, but I can tell when it hit it, it was actually, it actually hit it with a good amount of force. So we'll have to see what it looks like on the slow-mo. Oh, 1 and 2's right here. That's one hit. Next hit's down below it, and then had one kind of sneak down a little bit lower. So an inch on the, and those are those solid coppers too. So that's the reason they break up like that. And you can tell when they're hitting this target, they're a lot louder. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna set both gel blocks up. We're gonna pull the bullets out and we're gonna give you a conclusion. All right, so kind of the conclusion on everything. The Deer Season XP kind of blew up short, separated from the jacket, but it did go roughly 15 inches. I'm gonna dig this sucker out. Think about if this was somebody. So this is pretty much what the Winchester XPs look like, which this is actually pretty decent. Normally what we see, and especially the 350 Legend up close, 100 yards and in, the lead completely separates from the bullet. All right, then moving over, it was the Federal. And the Federal is... Right there. Okay, I didn't see it. Okay, sorry. The Federal is 19 1/4. Federal had good performance. That channel doesn't look bad, and we're going to go back and you have to really, like, to get a full picture of what these bullets are doing, you got to kind of, you have to take into consideration the temporary wound cavity, because that's a big factor in these rounds. So 64 grain, we'll dig it out. Did 19 1/4. Barely see that one. And it stayed together pretty good. It's pretty bonded. The lead's pretty bonded too. Especially how you can tell is, like, when you see the lead start peeling off but staying stuck to the petals when they peel off like that, that's good. That's good bonding of the lead and the actual copper together. And then the Barnes, it ran, we just did this one, but it ran 21 1/4. So this one actually penetrated the deepest, and since it's a solid copper bullet, it retained, guarantee you, all of its energy. Nice little pedal. Not really, it's got sharp edges on it, but you can see, I'd like to see it open up more down into this base and see if it can get it to flower out a little bit more, but it didn't open up as much as the other ones. Like if you look at the Barnes, and this is kind of what you get with a solid copper versus that exposed lead tip of that Federal, huge difference. And then the Winchester, like, it just blew up. It's almost like a ballistic tip. So that's this one. So the first one we shot into this, that was all of our 223. This is our 5.56. The 77 grain was right here. That was probably, for the price value, bang per buck. The AEC is hard to beat. The accuracy's there, the performance is there, and it's cheaper. I'm gonna pull out, I'll do both. I'll pull out the deepest piece of jacket, which is that. Did separate from the lead. This is probably one of the bigger chunks. Again, there's the lead where it separated. It did separate. I'm not going to dig all this out, but I want to get a piece of this lead because it went. But this is the thing, is we call these, in the medical field, they call these bleeders. And this is what kills you. Because when you get shot with that, and they start, if I started taking gauze, and I started, because this is what you got to do. You got to keep pressure on it, and you got to pack it as tight as you can. So when I'm starting to pack gauze as deep into this wound as I can get it, I'm stopping the bleeding from here to here. And I'm trying to pack it as tight as I can. Well, at the end of the day, I might pack this up from bleeding here, but I don't see these inside your body. And each one of these are bleeding. So that's why they call these bleeders. And then you bleed internally and you die. Yeah, there's a good piece right there. And like I said, go back and look on the video, but these are all, I mean, there's so many different wound channels in here. I mean, it's just, this would almost be an instant incapacitating shot. I mean, I don't know anybody that could survive this. I mean, all of these are cutting you and bleeding. Each one of these are bleeding individually. So that's just absolutely devastating. So moving over to the 5.56 75 grain Interlock. This is also a kind of an exposed lead tip bullet. And this is the one, roughly went 20 inches of penetration, and it held together. It retained a good bit of its energy. I mean, of its weight retention. It had pretty good weight retention on it. Actually, probably textbook. This is actually really nice. Bonded really well. You can see how the lead is peeled all the way down with the copper petals. Bonded really well. Excellent, as a matter of fact. Good mushrooming on it and good penetration off of it. So if you have to have this much penetration, if you want that much penetration, that would be your go-to, the 75 grain. I mean, of course, the copper actually penetrated deeper, but as far as like the wound cavity, like I'm calculating like everything into this. The wound cavity, the penetration, the way the bullet looks, the retention, that's actually a decent bullet right there. And then last, with our 5.56 was the 75 grain boat tail hollow point. These actually shot a 1/2 inch out of that 16-inch PSA gun. But what happened with them being a Superformance, they're faster, and this is a mess. I want to see, this is a tip. So like this one and the 77 grain open tip, which both of them are open tip bullets, that's what I wanted to see right there. That is the tip of the bullet. It broke off at 6 3/4. And that is the nose of it. So it literally sheared. When it went in there and it started tumbling and dumping all this energy, it literally sheared and broke off and made its own wound channel. Some of it kept going straight, and then the rest of it went this way. And that's what I'm talking about. That's bleeding, that's bleeding, that's bleeding, that's bleeding, and this entire cavity here is bleeding. So if you packed all this tight, these are still bleeding. I mean, as far as an animal or for self-defense, I mean, that's honestly what you want. I'm just going to grab some of the bigger pieces. Just jacket, no lead attached to that. Here's the base piece of lead. And it went way down. Like, I mean, it drove way down past the main track. You can see that was kind of the base of the lead down in the bullet. You can kind of see it didn't deform that. And then all the way in the side, this is majority of the copper and the bottom of it. So there's the very base. That would have been the piece of lead. Right there would have been down in that cup that separated. But what's crazy is like just the track. So like this is straight here. This is that much lower than the main track. This one's running like this. This piece that I just pulled out from this side was all the way down here. So like I said, it's bleeding up top, bleeding in the main track, and then making its own wound channels down here. So even if your you made kind of a high shot on the animal, this would have dove down and hit the vitals too. So that's actually not a bad bullet either. So my conclusion on it, like if you were going to ask me which one am I going to war with, which one am I going deer hunting with, for me, it's got to be between, I'm going to say between the AAC, just like I said, bang for buck, the accuracy was there, the bullet did its job, it penetrated deep enough for an animal. You know, when we're talking about deer cavities, we're talking about on a doe, 12 inches max, and then on, you know, different regions will have different sized deer. Up north, they have 300-pound deer. Down in the south, you can tell by the way I talk, of course, we're in the south, we have smaller deer. Our does are 100 to 140 pounds. They're 12 inches wide. You take a 200-pound buck here, which is a nice size big buck in this area, he's 15, 16 inches wide at his widest point. So does that mean that this bullet will absolutely do that? Yes. In your region, would you want something that penetrates deeper and the bullet holds together and you don't want it to do like more of this fragmenting going on? Then that's why we do this test. So you would pick something like the Federal, you pick the solid copper Barnes. Some places you have to hunt with solid copper bullets because the state, I don't know, like they're scared of like lead poison and stuff. Like the government don't do enough, but whatever. So for me, AAC, because this is stuff's like $12 a box. I like the performance of the Hornady Black, the Superformance Match. It actually had a really good cavity to it, that last one, but it was just a short cavity though. But it might have an overpressure bubble from the slow-mo that looks something like this. It could be crazy. So as far as what I'm looking at now without looking at the slow-mo footage, I'm going AAC. I might change this, but it'll be down in the actual comments because I'm not going to do another video to just tell you another conclusion. But right now I'm going AAC for just general. I would go black for more penetration or like tougher animals, like pigs and stuff like that. The match, that would be almost a good self-defense round for people that's not wearing armor or anything, because that cavity, we're not as wide as deer, okay? So you take that cavity in me, and that's taking out everything that's important. So as far as the 223, I would probably go Federal, Barnes, Winchester. I don't like bullets that blow up. I don't. All you guys that run these Winchester, I like Winchester ballistic tips, nickel plated. They look funny. They look good. I like the shiny case and the black tip. Whatever. I've tracked more buddies' deers off of Winchester ballistic tips, hitting them in the shoulder, and they go in about this deep and blow up than any other round I've ever messed with. So I'm not about bullets blowing up a couple of inches in the gel or in the cavity. So that's my conclusion. I might change what I said here in the comments when I look at the slow-mo and see what the overpressure looks like, see what the temporary wound cavity looks like. But again, I love y'all. This test come from a customer that was wanting to ask the question, what is the best round? So now y'all know. Love you. See y'all.